Hello and welcome to Coding with Jess, where you code along with me while we build a thing. So this week we're going to be continuing a project that we started last week where we were building a timer app that basically has multiple points at which the timer goes off. So I use this while I'm brewing coffee, where I have multiple times at which I need to pour the coffee. Why not a plain old timer? Well, I've been using the Apple timer for years and it works great. The one problem is that I tend to make coffee in somewhat of a chaotic environment, making breakfast, cooking eggs, dealing with children, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of need to be like poked when it is time to do the next thing. And so I just wanted a simple timer that would allow me to, at different points as the timer goes off, have a sound effect or something to like call me to attention of like, hey, make that pour now, or take the coffee off now, or whatever. So we started working on that last week. The other reason to work on this is looking at building software, something for myself that I would actually use, and using Replit plus Ghostwriter plus potentially Replit's bounties to build it. So we started off this last week in Replit and ran into some problems, but made it the full 2 hours in Replit. However, I've been talking with the Replit team over the last week, and they've already fixed some of the problems we ran into last week. So hopefully we'll have a much better time this week working inside the Replit IDE. So for those of you who are joining for and haven't been around for Coding with Jess before, what we're going to do is I'm going to basically just work and talk out loud for the next 2 hours. So you can almost think of it like pair programming if you've ever done that with someone before. I will just treat you as my pair who can sort of talk back to me. You could talk back to me through the YouTube chat if you would like. I do watch the chat somewhat as I'm going through. But yeah, I'm just going to talk and work. I'll work in Pomodoros. So I'll do a 25-minute work block, take a 5-minute break, 25 minutes. We'll do 4 of those, which is right about 2 hours. So without further ado, let's jump into getting started this week. So let's see. So I mentioned this is my sort of coffee setup. If you've been on Coding with Jess with me before, you know I like to keep a note open that has sort of my tasks that I want to accomplish for the day. So I was thinking about what I want to work on today. There's a couple of like minor UI tweaks and some features that I want to add to it, and then we probably will hit the end of this today before the end of the work session, which would be awesome. But before we go any further, let's go ahead and start our first 25-minute Pomodoro and get going. All right, so what we have so far, you can actually see this in a public Replit. If you go to replit.com/JessAMartin, multi-timer, you'll find a copy of this Replit. You can open it up, check it out yourself, and like see what the code is. I also have the code open over here. On the left, you can see it's a pretty simple app right now. You can hit start, you can stop, you can restart the timer. You can set timers, so things like I could set a timer for 1 and 2 and 3, and that's going to play a sound at 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. So you'll sound something like this. And that's something else we need to look at. So you notice that the timing on that, it went click, 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 when it should have been click, click, click. I'm noticing that the way that I'm triggering the timer is not playing the sound at exactly the right moment. So I'm just going to list that as a bug that we might want to come back to today. Let's see, make sure the sound plays right at the appropriate time. So yeah, we can come back to that one. The good news is about the brewing coffee, it's playing the time like within like 1 second, or playing the sound within like 1 second of the timer switching over, so I'm not too worried about it. And we're not doing anything like super precise here, although some people would argue that brewing coffee is super precise. So anyway, we can list that as one thing to come back to. Right now, all of the code lives in this one page.svelte file. So if you've worked with Svelte before, there's basically like 2 sections. There's the script section up at the top where most of the code lives. And this script section gets executed from top to bottom when the application loads. And then down below, there's a layout section, which basically runs up to here. And this basically formats the page and then has some like embedded, this is like the SvelteKit insert things into the DOM or into the emitted HTML here. There's some other stuff in the SvelteKit file, like the layout file and the app CSS and that kind of stuff, but we're really not going to be working in that section much, so I'm not going to talk about those very much. And yeah, you can see that over here on the left, the Replit rebuilds pretty quickly, which is one of the really nice features of running Replit, is that this thing has a running sort of production instance that I can edit. So if I like save, there you go. I made the change and hit Command S, and you'll see the R and the S disappear from that multi-timers. So it refreshes very quickly. The downside of this is like I am editing in production. And so if I were to like break something, like try to insert a variable that doesn't exist, the application goes away. So supposedly that's something that Replit is working on fixing in the next few weeks, even, of having a production instance that you can, so that you can make changes and edit and not break your production instance. So look forward to that feature. In the meantime, while we're coding on this today, the app will go up and down. So hopefully you're not using the multi-timer to brew your coffee. Otherwise, it will fail you at this point. So downsides of working with bleeding edge technology, I guess. All right, so looking at my to-do list for today, we're bounce over here to Obsidian. One of the things that I changed between now and last time is I made the stop and the start button work appropriately, and I changed the formatting of the timer to display in minutes and seconds. This was really helpful for me because I was having trouble converting in my head, like while I was using the timer this week to brew coffee, I was having trouble converting in my head to from the raw number over to like a 60-second thing to just confirm that I was doing the right thing from the timer's perspective. So you can kind of see now it actually will count up to 60. I'm not going to wait all the way to 60 and then start putting minutes in this column. One of the cool things about this is I actually made this change to the code while standing in my kitchen, waiting for coffee to brew and working on the Replit app on my phone, which was pretty wild. Like the fact that I could sit there and like reformat how the page was displayed by just making a couple edits on my phone in the Replit app, and then it would immediately propagate to production. I think that's the magic that Replit's going for. And that was a pretty magical moment. I was pretty happy about that. So I made that one change. What I'd like to do now, though, is I'd like to go through and make these also convert to minutes and seconds, or at least display in minutes and seconds. So right now, it's fine if you want to enter it as 105, but if there's a colon in it, we should probably parse it as minutes and seconds and convert it that way. That way, when you're looking at a list of timers, you know what they mean and they correspond to like the minutes and seconds version of this. Like even having to do this of like, okay, so this is 105 minus 60 would be 45. So this is a minute and 45. Like having to do that quick conversion in your head is just annoying. And we could present it in a way that like makes more sense. All right, so where would we do that? Let's see. Currently our timers are emitted here in this loop. So we loop over the timers, we create an LI, a list item for each timer as we emit it, and then we bind the value to timer.time. So this is going to be a problem actually. The way that we update the timer is this really simple update mechanism where when I change this, it's the value is actually bound to the value in that array, which is really cool that SvelteKit allows you to do that. However, in this case, we're going to need to display a different value in this input box than what is than what we want to save, right? If we put this 12, 30, or like 045 would be the answer here. I don't think that'll work. In fact, I'm curious what'll happen here. Yeah, that's totally not going to work. So like when it tries to parse the timer, let's go see where our timer parsing happens. That would be in the, and you know, something I might start doing on this particular time is actually start doing some refactoring, pulling out some of these methods and putting them in libutil. Or into like a lib file and then testing them separately. But for right now, it's pretty handy having them all in this single file, especially for editing purposes. So we'll leave them here for now, but maybe refactor later today. So here's the code. When we hit the time interval, we create this Windows set interval. And then that runs every 10 milliseconds, I think is that interval right there. So every 10 milliseconds, this interval's code runs. And when it runs, we calculate the current seconds. We run through each of the timers. If the timer has elapsed already, then we just skip it. If the current number of seconds is greater than the timer's time, then we go ahead and play a sound. Now, the problem, I wonder if we could optimize this by pulling sound out of this function and only defining it out here. I'm just thinking about that slowdown, that weird thing that we were seeing where it flickers or where it fails to play the sound immediately, and wondering why that is. And I wonder if it's loading the sound into memory. Who knows? I have a feeling it's actually probably around the way that intervals work, but we'll find out here in a second. So it's this comparison right here. Seconds is greater than timer.time. And so what that's going to look like in, if we have 0.45, it would be like, is 10 seconds greater than 0:45? And I really don't know what that comparison would do, because 10 is a number, and 45 is a string probably. So anyway, not good things is the answer. And actually, this is TypeScript, so that time would be a number. So it's going to try and parse that as a number, I guess. I'm not sure. Curious if anyone who's watching knows what happens here. But I've bound a value to timer.time in this input right here. And when you change it, like if you change it to something like this, do we get a oops? Do we get a console error? Which, let me make these a little smaller. Whoop, whoop, whoop. No, we don't. That's weird. I don't know what that actually does, because the value is clearly typed up here as a number. Maybe it just does it tries to parse it and then fails to parse it and then stores it as 0 or something like that. That's not my experience of TypeScript. But in any case, the core problem here is we want to allow people to type in a number if they want, store that as a number for the sake of our comparison, but then display it in terms of minutes and seconds. So there's a couple things we could do here. One, we could create another field here, span, and make that timer.time. And we could style this up so that this is the minutes and seconds version. And then when you click on it, we could swap out the input, right? So like we could hide this class for now. So it'd be like hidden, I guess. I'm trying to remember what yeah, that's it. So we do this as hidden. We could style them exactly the same so that they look the same. Class equals border, BG slate 300, PX2, all of those things. Now we'll need to set a width here. This gets back to our styling thing we were having before that I was talking about maybe improving before. One other thing I would love to have in Replit is tailwind completions. I wonder if I can bring those in through like a language server or something. Let's see if width 5 is right. I think that's way too small. Width 10. Oh, spans are inline, not inline block, so we need to change that to inline. Widths don't apply. There we go. Cool. So now it's styling up. Let's see what if we unhide that one, we should end up, yeah, cool. So see how these two blocks are very similarly styled. We're also going to need to make that thing wider, but let's go ahead and say 20. There we go. Cool. So now we've got these two blocks that look exactly the same. One is editable, one is not editable. Now we can go ahead, we could go ahead and say time in minutes, seconds. Actually, did I already write a function for this? I did, seconds to time. Cool. So we can reuse the function that we've already written. Notice how like the Replit's like freaking out over here. Cool, there we go. So now those times are displayed in minutes and seconds, and they're entered in numbers. So we're just going to want to swap these out when a click happens. I think this is pretty straightforward. Kind of want to make these a little bigger. Whoa, 25 can't really be that big. Oh, 25 is not a thing. Again, tailwind completions would be so nice. Please make happens. Alrighty, there we go. 24 and 24. And so what we want is only this one to get displayed until I click on it. So let's start with this as what we can do is maybe swap a value on click. That's an interesting way to try it out. So let's see, it would be on click. We'll call toggle timer. Oh, but this is going to toggle all of them, which I don't want to do. And then how do we toggle it back? Interesting. So maybe we do it as an inline function here and toggle just this one. That's what we want to do is, well, toggle this set. I guess we could do it here. We could set a class on the li. Oh, this is interesting. So there's a couple different ways to do it. If we have the right class on an li here, we could have these child elements be hidden or shown based on their relationship with the class here on the li, and then we just have to toggle the two things. But one thing that did occur to me is how would we want to toggle back? Like assume that we put the, all right, let me make this compile again so we can see our multi-timer. Let's see, remove the on click will be the easiest way. Hopefully this will compile again. All right, so once you have clicked in here and you've typed in some numbers or something, how do you save and go back to the timer? I mean, save button would be like the gimpy way to do this. I mean, even my remove button is pretty gimpy. So maybe like changing this remove out. Anyway, leave the remove alone for a sec. Like clearly like hitting return, losing focus, both of those should cause the value to get saved and for it to automatically switch back over to this view. Let's make it work first with like the simplest case, and then we'll add other cases to like make it feel good. How about that? How about that? All right, so then in this case, we want to toggle hidden or toggle timer edit. That seems like a reasonable name. And then and that's going to be in the span because that's what's going to get clicked on. So that's up here. On click, timer toggle edit, or toggle timer edit. There is no toggle timer edit. Let's see what happens when we toggle timer edit equals do. Let me give this a let timer. Yeah, this is going to do all of them, and maybe that's okay for now. Timer edit visible equals false. Ghostwriter did not do a good job predicting, but I've given it a little bit more information now. What? Equals not? You can do that? Oh, okay. Yeah, that works. I read it wrong with that. When it was jumped onto that, I was like, wait, isn't that? Okay. There we go. All right, so toggle timer edit. So now now we need to do a conditional class. So what'll happen is we'll in here emit the class. So timer edit visible. If it's visible, then nothing, I think. And then if it's not visible, then hidden. All right, perfect, great. So that brought it. Now when I click the span, it hides or shows the timer. That's pretty cool. And if I edit this, this should like, yes! Oh, now we get to see what happens when we, awesome. So when it fails to parse, we get some awesome not a number stuff. So we might, I don't know, we could figure out ways to make that better. But I love how fast this is too. Like, there we go. That's fun. Okay, great. So now we can type in things like 105. I would like to be able to type in like 130 or whatever and have that map over. So maybe we can write some custom logic for updating. But right now our logic is very straightforward of just, it just tries to write it down as a number, parse it as a number. Okay, so we can now hide and show by clicking on this, but now we need to, let's see, hide the span. So that would be in the span, we'll have a conditional class here, timer edit visible. If it is visible, then this should be hidden, else nothing. All right, let's see that. So now we're not gonna, well, if this works, timer edit visible is not defined. Oh, I misspelled it. There we go. Why didn't I get an error there? I would have expected like the language server to be underlining that with the squiggly line. All right, now we can't get back to it because we can't click on the span to toggle. So now we need to handle, let's see, on blur. Is that what it is? Oh, come on, help me out, language server. On blur. Does it give you, bummer. I think it is on blur, which is losing focus. And so then we'll call toggle timer edit. I expect an autocomplete there. That would have been nice, but all right. So now I click that, bring it in. There we go. Nice. Okay, so now I can type in a number like 5 seconds and then click away and I get back the other. Great. So we've got the simplest case working. So it's toggling back and forth between the two. Let's make sure it actually works. Let's set this for 2 seconds and this one for 3 and this one for 5. Oh, interesting that it actually saves that 0. Oh, because it's the value. All right, so now let's hit start and see what happens. All right. Interesting. Okay. So that actually, so it worked, which is great. It also felt like it was more regular. Remember what we were talking about? There was a weird delay there before. Oh, bummer. There's one weird UI quirk here that when so one thing I might want to do is set multiple timers. So now it's showing me all the timers. And so I might want to click into 2. When I try to click into 2, it does an on blur for 3. And instead of focusing on 2, it swaps out the things behind the scenes, which is kind of annoying. So we might need to think of a simpler interaction there. But what I just noticed that I think is worth looking into is it sounded like the timers were actually working better. Oh, interesting. So yeah, we'll need to update my math. My math did not handle. When I add timers, I was trying to add 10 seconds and I added 10 digits, which is not the same thing. We'll fix that in a second. All right, so I just added a bunch of timers. And so what we should hear is like click, 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 like one after another. I'm not exactly sure how layering works in the sounds, so that like I might have messed this up by trying to do too many at once, but we should hear irregular sounds. Oh yeah. So short answer here is I think this line actually declaring and loading the sound outside of the loop and having it be already sort of loaded into memory actually made it so that the timers go off at exactly the right time, which is freaking cool. I hope you guys can hear that click. It may not come through since it's like, here's the speakers are there and here's the microphone, but okay. So now we have a couple things going on here. We've got our timers that you can edit being displayed as minutes and seconds, which is great. which is the same as this up here. We have fixed the time. I'm gonna go check that off. Have the sound, make sure the sound plays right at the appropriate time. Fixed. That's pretty awesome. Show time in minutes and seconds. Do we think this is good enough to go on? I don't know. Remove all the timers, add a timer back. Oh, let's go fix our add timer code. Oh, weird. So it works in this case, but in the case, if I make it a time 40.4, huh, interesting. Okay, so let's see when we add a new timer. That's a funny little bug. Why does it do string addition in one case? All right, there's our initial timers right there. Oh, add new timer right there below it. All right, so in this case, it searches for the largest timer, and then it declares a new timer. Do I need to declare this as a number? Okay, largest time is now a number. Let's see if that changes what happens here. No? This plus is definitely doing string. This is the result of adding a string, or adding an integer to a string. Because you can see it's adding that 1, 0 to the end. So an example of that would be this. If I said 40.4 plus 10, you get that. Or if I do 40 plus 10, you get that. So something about this is like failing to parse it as, it's like leaving it as a string. It's making me, again, this is back to that question I was asking a second ago about how does this timer type work when we're binding on the value. It almost seems like that's somehow bypassing or getting around TypeScript, because the input box could actually contain something that's not a number. And we were getting that NaN a second ago. So makes me wonder, I read something this week about SvelteKit moving off of TypeScript and not using it as heavily, which, dang, I don't know, seems like an interesting choice. All right, we are just about at the end of our first Pomodoro. So far, we have looked at several things. We have fixed the audio size. All right, so that was a pretty good first work session. We fixed the audio problem and it now plays the sound at exactly the right point. We converted each of the timers to display, and we add new timers when there's a fraction, or sorry, a decimal in the largest timer's time. We can fix that when we get back, but for right now, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break and then I'll be back to start Pomodoro number 2 in just a second. See you guys in 5. All right, folks, I'm back to start Pomodoro number 2. Just taking a walk outside during that Pomodoro break, and I ran into my 10-year-old son. He said, "I thought you were doing a live stream." And I said, "Oh yeah, I'm doing a live stream, but I'm on one of my 5-minute breaks." He's like, "Man, it must be nice to have breaks during your..." And I was like, "Yeah, it's nice." He said, "I guess you have to have breaks because then when would they roll the ads?" Yes, this live stream, as far as I know, is ad-free, but if you would like to sponsor this this live stream and insert your ads during our Pomodoro breaks, get in touch. Oh, just kidding. All right, so back to work here. Let's see. So start another 25-minute timer. We're now on Pomodoro 2 of 4. So we're about 30 minutes into our 2-hour work block. And so far, having some good success. Things are working well here. We did show the time. So one of the changes we just made was showing the time in minutes and seconds formats here for each one of our timers that are going to go off, which is great. The one thing I would like to do, I don't know, this UX is probably fine. I'd like to try it on my phone real quick, which I don't have. I don't have the ability to share that, unfortunately. But I'm going to give this a quick try and just see what it feels like. I really do need to do some styling work. Ugh. Yeah, it does a weird zoom thing. Oh, interesting. And if I have them out of order, okay. Some things to think about. So yeah, the UI is not great on the phone. The other thing I noticed is that I probably want to sort these timers as I display them, because like you have this, if I make this one 30 seconds, then it looks odd. So let's write some of this stuff down. Don't want to just go down that rabbit hole just for the sake of doing it. Improve the UX on mobile. I'm not sure what the UX should be because you're not exactly hitting enter. Well, one of the things we could do on mobile that would be pretty cool, actually, make this a bullet point here. We could show the keypad instead of the letters, numeral keypad. That would make it nice to like enter a time really quickly. Make it dismiss on return. Maybe even rename the return key. Rename the return key. I know that some of this stuff is possible in terms of and then another UX thing is like locking the zoom to prevent accidental zooms. I'm getting a weird accidental zoom when I try to toggle out on focus on the thing. And then one other thing I just noticed is we probably want to sort the timers in ascending order. And then another improvement I thought of from a UX standpoint is show which timers have already elapsed. Ooh. And there's another weird edge case here of like when changing the time for a timer and the timer is running, may need to reset the elapsed status. Let's see, what was the other defect that we just saw? I think it was, oh yeah, the other bug is adding a new timer when the largest timer has a decimal point, causes string addition. Okay, lots of little bugs to fix. I'm not going to squash those right now because the main reason, actually move these down. The main thing I wanted to work on today is the feature that's actually going to make this really useful for me. Again, this is something that I'm actually using to brew coffee. I need to have the sound continue to annoy me until I dismiss it. And this is really important because, like I mentioned, the way, just like a quick picture again of what it looks like in my kitchen. This is happening. I'm brewing this on my kitchen counter. I've got a timer on my phone that's sitting on the counter right next to that scale, and it's counting up and letting me know when I should do the next pour. And if it just makes a sound once, that sound might get drowned out in a request from my son or me washing dishes, which is like to the right in this picture. It's like over here. And so I need that sound to repeat until I do the thing and say I did the thing. So we need some, I'm not going to worry so much about the UX today, but we need the logic so that the timer continues to play the sound on repeat until I dismiss it. And I'm really not sure how to handle this case. But let's work on that now and see if we can knock that out in this Pomodoro. Okay, so I mentioned that the way timer playing works is it plays once and only once because of this loop. So what happens is you set an interval on the window for the DOM, and what an interval does is when the interval of time elapses, it calls a function. And so until you clear the interval, every single time that time elapses, it will call the same function. So this function that I've got highlighted on the screen right now gets called every 10 milliseconds, like pop, 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 continually back to back to back to back. And what it does in one of these calls, actually, it's interesting. I think there's might be some race conditions here around intervals such that the sound might get played twice. We'd have to look at the set interval code to understand how it works, but it's possible if two of these anonymous functions get executed at the same time, and both of them are past the time at which the timer has elapsed, then this timer loop will find that timer, find that it has not been marked as elapsed yet, and play the sound. Interesting. This may become more apparent when we have a timer that like plays over time. So the real question is, how should we well, a couple things. One, there's like, how do you loop the sound? And yeah, this is going to be interesting. Okay, so what we want to do instead of just playing the sound is right here, call a function that starts the sound playing, and then have that function stop playing the sound when a certain thing happens. So let's just say start playing a sound on repeat. The reason I'm pulling it out of this set interval is the set interval is going to get called over and over again. And technically, as soon as the sound starts playing, the timer has elapsed. And so we actually do want to start that sound playing on repeat and then mark timer elapsed as true as quickly as possible so that it doesn't get repeatedly started or that kind of thing. So let's say const start timer sound. And here we'll call start timer sound. And now this should go ahead and work. We made a very small change. Let's test it real quick. It works. Great. Is this going to give me autocomplete? Okay. So it's not giving me autocomplete around what this audio library has for me to offer. So we need to do, oh, here we go. Let's ask Ghostwriter to help us out. How do I repeat a sound playing in the browser using the audio API? Okay, cool. There's a loop thing. All right, so we'll set sound.loop equals true. This will loop the sound indefinitely. Oh, when it's played. Okay, cool. It specifies that. When it's played, it will loop. So let's try that. move that to 1 second, hit go. Nice. There we go. All right. I don't, oh goodness. Yeah, that does really go forever, doesn't it? Let's refresh. Okay, sweet, it works. Thanks, Ghostwriter. That was super helpful. Much better than like going to search the docs. So sound.loop equals true, sound.play. So now we need something to stop that timer once it's done. So I think what we need to add is an additional field, a Boolean on our timer object here. So we're going to have elapsed and we're going to have acknowledged, which is also going to be a Boolean here. Acknowledged will start off as false, so we'll acknowledged false. Let's add that. Man, really wishing for some prettier action right now. Here's a throwaway. How do I configure prettier and ESLint to work inside of Replit? This is like, this would be amazing if it like just, let's see. All right, saying if I just like create the necessary files. All right, I'm gonna make, instead of interrupting our current task, I'm gonna make this a thing that we can look at. Get prettier. I have all those files already defined for a SvelteKit project. I could easily add those and just see if it works. All right, we'll come back to that in a second. But the reason I really wanted prettier is it's really annoying that these, having to like manually format these. I've gotten so used to having auto format happen on save. It's really nice. All right, so there's our timers being created. We have this acknowledged Boolean that starts off as false. And then, wait, why is it important to have the acknowledged Boolean? Because what we're going to, because we're going to need to display something in the UI for each timer that says like clear, like stop playing the sound or did the thing or whatever. So we'll, in our inputs here, we'll have an if timer.acknowledged. Whoops. Ghostwriter was trying to give me a suggestion there. Is it end if? Oh, it's a slash if. Okay. Cool. Okay, so we want if timer has elapsed and timer is not acknowledged, then show this thing, which we'll probably make into like a button or something. Call it, got it. All right, so then let's try this out. 1 second, start. Doggone it. All right, what did I miss here? It's gonna play forever. Forever! All right, if timer has elapsed and the timer has not been acknowledged. So the timer should not be acknowledged because it's false. So this should be true and true. Timer elapsed is true. Timer not acknowledged is true. Only thing I can think of here is this could be like there's a svelte error where it can't tell when a particular object updates if you don't reassign the entire object. So we have to do like timer equals timer here. Let's see if that does it. Nope, that's not it. Let's try this. Let's clear my conditional and always show this. If true. I wonder if I can comment out the rest. I can't. How about that? If true, let's make sure that we've at least got this formatted correctly. Yep, there it is. Got it. So then back to my thing before. If timer is not acknowledged, should be true for all of them. Ah, no, Oh, okay, there it is. And if timer is not acknowledged and the timer has not elapsed, we'll reverse my condition. Okay, so something is going wrong here where it's not redrawing this layout when the timer is getting set to elapsed here. Annoying. Maybe it's timers? Is timers the thing? Oh, that's what it is. It's not, it's timers. I bet that's it. All right, 1 second. Start. Yes. All right. I hate that that's the answer, but that is the answer. So this is like an idiosyncrasy of weird thing about SvelteKit to trigger refresh. Basically, it doesn't know when a map has been updated by updating some member down inside the map, and so you have to reassign the map to itself, which doesn't change anything, but that triggers SvelteKit to know that an update has happened, which then refreshes the layout. Yay! So we have if timer is not acknowledged and the timer has elapsed, then display this got it thing. And now we just need to make this thing into a button that can then acknowledge the what we want to happen. So we'll call it got it. And we'll say mark oh, actually we can do it right here. We can do an anonymous function that takes timer.acknowledged. Ugh. Okay, this has bitten me before. So we can set timer acknowledged to true, which is great. That is not going to update the UI. So we can update the UI with timers equals timers. All right, let's see this happen in action here. 1 second, start. Click. All right, it goes away, which is awesome. It doesn't stop playing though. So what we actually need to do here is stop the sound. So maybe like that, sound.stop here. I don't like this huge inline function, but the reason I'm doing that, I'll tell you why I'm doing that in just a second. So let's see. Make this 1 second, hit start. Oh, the anonymous function can't access the sound, apparently. But it can access timers. Is sound not sound.stop? Okay, how do I stop playing a sound with the web audio API that is looping? I bet it's like loop.tripballs or something. No, sound.stop. Audio buffer source node. What? That's surprising. We're not using an audio buffer in source node, we're just using audio. And up here, it mentions audio as well. Maybe I can refer specifically to my code. Call the pause method to stop the playback. Interesting. And it's also saying reset loop. I don't think I want to reset loop, but we'll try pause. Not having high degree of confidence in this answer here, but let's see what happens. Oh, sweet, it worked. Haha. Cool. Okay. So that wasn't so bad. Now, why did I do this inline function here? The reason for that is instead of the normal way to do this, not normal, another way to have done this is to pass in a function pointer here on this in this onClick and define this behavior in a function. So we could come up here and call this like const pause timer equals this. And ideally what we want to do is like pass in timer and let me grab this code out. And right, I don't have ESLint, so it's not breaking, it's not wrapping for me automatically. There's that. All right, so that pauses one of the timers. I'm going to call this acknowledge timer to make it align with the data model there. So now we'll call it acknowledge timer, come back in, replace this on click with acknowledge timer. Now the problem with that is it doesn't know what timer. So ideally I would pass in like timer, but what that does is that actually calls the timer, or that sorry, that calls this method when the page is rendered, which is not what I want. And so in SvelteKit, how do I call a method on click and pass in an argument? Oh, duh. Jeez, this has hit me before and I've forgotten it. Okay, so of course I define an anonymous function, which is the thing I was just talking about. So basically I say, hey, here's the function. This simple function, all it's going to do is call acknowledge timer and pass in the timer. Duh. Jeez, I can't believe I forget that so often. All right, so let's back to our little case here. Let's do 3, 5, 8, 10, and hit start. Got it. Got it. And now I'm curious what'll happen when 2 are started at the same time. Okay, cool. That wasn't bad. Interesting. So when 2 started at the same time, oh, sorry. So let's make this, that string addition thing is bothering me. We're gonna fix that. But when 2 are started at the same time, it doesn't, so watch how this works. Actually, let's make these a little bit shorter. Let's make this 6. I don't like that I can't tab between them either. That's annoying. I want tabbing to work right. All right, 7, 8. All right, now, not add, start. Oh, right, I forgot restarting start. You guys get to wait. Here we go. 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, we need to reset all the acknowledgements too. All right, stop. Oh no, got it. We should also make stop pause the timer. Let's do that real quick. So stop timer clears the interval, timer undefined, and also what is it? Acknowledge timer, but which one? Okay, so maybe we want to change how acknowledge timer works. Maybe instead of having an acknowledgement per timer, we have a single acknowledgement because they can stack up. And then the good thing is the sound doesn't stop playing, which is wonderful. But we probably want a single UI element that says dismiss as opposed to a UI element per timer. And when we acknowledge, we basically want to, all right, let's remove timer from here. I'm just going to break our thing for a second. Acknowledge, mark all timers as acknowledged that are elapsed. So timers dot for each. Thank you, Ghostwriter. That was actually the right thing to do. And then we'll reset the timers equals timers, and we'll pause the sound. Is that the right thing to do? So let me think about that for a second. Okay, so I think that is right. Let's give ourselves 5 more minutes, and because we just made this code change that I think is going to solve the stacking problem, but let's find out. So now we're going to delete that. We don't need the anonymous function, wrapping acknowledge timer and passing an individual timer. We're just going to call acknowledge timer when any one of them runs. Now, the one case that's a little weird here is we'll have multiple opportunities to acknowledge the timer, multiple buttons, but we'll change that in a minute. Let's go ahead and hit start though. Great, got it, got it, got it, got it. Perfect. Okay, cool. When we click any one of them, it does not acknowledge the rest of them. Let's try one more case real quick, and then we'll be done for this Pomodoro. Take a 5-minute break. We'll do 1, 2, 3, and then we'll add a timer that goes off at 10, 11, 12. And now what I'm going to do is acknowledge in the middle, and then it should re-trigger the sound in a second. So here we go. Got it, got it, got it. All right, now I'm going to acknowledge this one. Click, all of those clear. The sound stops playing, and then we should see it again. Got it, got it, got it. Click. All right. And then finally, let's set one for 20. And now if I hit stop, it should stop playing the sound. Doggone it. Got it. Okay, fine. So then the last thing it did is it did not stop playing that sound. So in stop timer, oh, because we didn't call the method, acknowledge timer. So let's do that one thing, then start, stop. Great. Okay, nice. Well, that was the end of Pomodoro 2. We actually got the next thing done we wanted to get done, have the sound continue until it's dismissed. That was actually one of the ones that I was most, not worried about, but most, it was ambiguous how we might accomplish that because there's some logic there to do and all that stuff. All right, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'll be back in 5, and we will start on Pomodoro 3 of our 2-hour work session here. See you guys in 5 minutes. All right, folks, welcome back. We're now on Pomodoro 3, of 4. So we're about an hour into this 2-hour-long work session. And so without further ado, what we might work on next. There's our 25-minute timer. Let's crank for 25 more minutes to see where we go. So far today, we've had a pretty good day working on multi-timer. We now have the thing pesters me until I tell it to stop. There's formatting to make all the timers format appropriately. We've come across a handful of bugs, fixed a few. So let's see, what should we tackle next from this list? One simple one that would be a quick win would be sorting the timers in ascending order. So let's go do that real fast. Basically, we can leave them in this array unsorted. And what we'll do when we actually output them to the screen is sort them there. So let's see. I think I don't know about that, whether I can do it right there in the, I don't know if I can call that here, but let's see. I'm going to bring a function up here, const sort timers by time. That. All right, let's see how good Ghostwriter did at outputting some code for me. Timer sort. If a time is less, if a time is more, else return 0. Yeah, that looks about right. And I guess we can call that at the end of adding, and we need to call that for every update though too. So it would be ideal to actually output them here. Oh, I guess I could do this, sorted timers. That's what we'll do. We'll make this actually return. Yeah, I'll have that return timers. All right, so now if I set this to 1, oh, wow, that's fast. That's kind of problematic, actually. Did you guys catch what happened there? So if I like set this to a lower number, it immediately moves it while leaving the focus on the other input block. So interesting that it reorders the DOM that fast. I mean, did I even? Oh, wow. That is interesting. So the bind value, it doesn't wait for you. It just waits for you to stop typing. There's some sort of debounce happening on this guy. So then I think we finally need to move to an update timers function, as opposed to what we have going on here. Gosh, this is a mess. Kind of want to break this up a little bit so I can see what's going on here. Okay, so that initial idea does not work. I thought sorting timers would be simple, but if we resort too soon, then we get some weird stuff here. It basically re-renders the timers while we're editing, and that is a problem. So again, the way that we're doing updates to the value is on this, where is it? Where's the bind here? Bind value, there it is. Okay, let me go ahead and let's clean this up a little bit. Actually, before I clean this up manually, let's see if Ghostwriter's instructions on how to use ESLint and Prettier actually work. Alrighty. It says I just create the files, so let's see if it's really that simple. I'm going to go over to my GitHub, github.com/JessMartin, and if you go there, I have a file called SK Starter, which is my SvelteKit starter that's configured the way I want it to be configured. So we're going to need a prettier RC. Actually, I'm going to want to drag these from my desktop. So let's do that here. SK starter. Let me pull to make sure I've got the most recent code on this guy. Apparently I do. We'll have open dot here. All right, that brings up the folder, and drag and drop has worked pretty well for me in the past here. So we're going to grab prettier RC, prettier ignore ESLint, ignore ESLint RC, and we'll drag those over to here. All right, so I created a prettier RC. We need to install the packages too. Okay. I wasn't clear on package installation in Replit. Like, should I grab this command here and bring up a console? Or is it called terminal? There's a weird difference between consoles and the other, whatever they call the other thing, shell. Here, where like the console is like the running one, whatever. All right, so let's do an npm install here. That should get them listed in our package JSON, which is, they are. It's great. Let me make sure, I wonder what exact packages I have. Let's bring that GitHub link back up. SK starter one. And let's see what ESLint and other packages I have. ESLint has config prettier and ESLint plugin Svelte3. Definitely want that too. What did I just install? I installed ESLint config prettier, plugin prettier. Oh, interesting. There's several things here too. ESLint itself is not installed. There's prettier plugin Svelte. Huh. Well, there's prettier. Let's go ahead and install. Oops. That was so nice. It warned me about closing the page. It was not doing that yesterday when I was, or at different times it's like randomly does or does not warn you about closing. Command W is such a habit for me. Whoa. What? Okay. Hey, GitHub, I just want to select some text. Get out of my way. Oh my gosh. All right, prettier plugin Svelte. ESLint plugin Svelte3. Now how we look in here? Oh yeah, TypeScript, ESLint. Oh, come on. Oh gosh, raw. There we go. And last one. npm install -d. I guess I could have like had those all be on the same line or whatever. Okay, so back over to the package JSON. Now we have TypeScript, ESLint plugin, and the ESLint parser. We have ESLint itself, which is not installed over here. All right. All right, we have ESLint itself, config prettier, plugin Svelte3. I'm not sure what plugin prettier is. There's prettier and prettier plugin Svelte. All right, that looks pretty good. And then let's go back over to Ghostwriter's answer and see if there's anything else that it mentions. I've added an ESLint RC. Actually, bring that over here. An ESLint ignore. Great. All right. Well, it looks like it should be running now. So if I come in here and just hit save, am I missing anything? ESLint recommended. Let's see what the ESLint RC says here. Golly day. I want to be over here. Ghostwriter, ESLint RC extends ESLint recommended, extends plugin TypeScript ESLint recommended, and plugin prettier. Interesting. So this is like using it as I'd like to set up ESLint, prettier, and TypeScript all working with a SvelteKit Replit. Okay, so this one has the plugin TypeScript ESLint recommended and prettier. This is the way we have it over here, which is good. There's the TypeScript ESLint parser, the plugins, TypeScript ESLint. Okay, all this looks good compared to what we have. Overrides files, ignore version. Cool, all that looks good. The TypeScript config. We may have to change the TS config because this TS config came with the default and is not the one that I normally use. So let's see, TS config says, well, this looks really different. I hate TS config files. I just want them to work. I don't want to think about them. It looks like I'm going to look at the one that is for my SvelteKit starter because I have a feeling that's closer to what I want because it has SvelteKit, it already has ESLint and prettier configured, so if there's anything special that needs to happen. All right, allow JS true, checks JS true, ES module interrupt true. No, that looks vanilla to me. Cool. Ghostwriter, you wrong. But that's fine. We didn't have to change anything. And then there's the prettier RC file. Golly day. I like opening things up over here. There we go. Semi-true, single quote, print width, whatever. Prettier plugin svelte. And then finally in the package.json, package.json, that might be the place where we need it. The lint command. Let me go see what I have in my lint command here in my SK starter, and we'll compare that to what Ghostwriter is recommending. Package.json. Oh, there's a lint and a format. Interesting. Yeah, we'll have both. All right. Page svelte. So then if I come over to shell, I should be able to say like npm lint, right? Or run lint. Code styles found in issues found in all of your files. What if I run format? Ho ho ho! Sweet. So it ran, that ran and did all the formats for me. But it's not giving me the actual linting information here. So glad that it formatted it for me. Wonderful. But I want it to be in the loop of how I'm using Replit. So npm run lint did what I wanted. Can I have Replit run lint and format on every save? An editor extension that runs the linting. Here's an example using VS Code. Pretty sure that's not going to work for me. Thanks. Let's see. Let me see if the secret hidden file, the Replit file, has anything about this. Package search. There's the language server, JavaScript. I would expect it to be specified in here. Let's do it real quick. This is clearly wrong because this is about. All right, there's a docs thing here too, right? Docs. And I could search for maybe .replit. Expanding the config file? Maybe. No, that is not the config file we're talking about. Replit config. Bah. Languages.features. All right, that sucks. Let's see, Replit config file format. We may have gotten as far as we can get, y'all. It may be that we just have to. So here's the Replit file. The toml configuration format, sure. The command that's executed when the run button is clicked, cargo run, yep. How about the default file that's open, packager configuration, packager features, per language configuration, LSP configuration, code intelligence, which is great. Run entry point, compile on boot, command that executes. Is there a command that executes after a save? An on save would be awesome. Hints, debugger, nix, examples, save, format. Ooh, here we go. PyLS. So that gives you the language server, but how does that relate to? Whoa, interesting. Languages HTML provide formatter. Huh. Okay, so we have this language right here. Svelte server. So, okay, we spent about 15 minutes on this. I think I'm gonna let that go for now. We do have them installed. We can run them via lint and format manually, which is not what we want ideally. But there's a possibility of the Svelte. Well, let's go for a few more seconds here. Svelte server, language server, format. Svelte language server. I don't see anything about format there. So it looks like you some language servers offer a formatter as well. It's weird working backwards from here. I haven't played with language servers very much. Configured linting. It's pretty cool. And that's SCSS. Yeah, so these apparently these language servers can include formatting and linting. I'm not sure. SvelteKit. Oh, that's interesting. This had SvelteKit. Where did I see that? Did I see it in my own package JSON? Or was it in this one? Let's see, package JSON. There it is, SvelteKit. Does that have to be run? Maybe in package JSON it's getting run? Check. Yep, there it is. So there's a SvelteKit npm run check, npm run check watch. Hey, is that running right now? How would I know? Run check watch. Oh, great. So that's giving me errors over here, but I want them here, like integrated into the IDE. I bet that has something to do with the way that the language server is defined in the .repl file. Oh man, feel like it's so close. Command line tool built from the VTI. Interesting. Running the dev language server against your app. Yeah, okay. Probably far enough to go for now. We can at least get these errors over here, which are helpful. And then figuring out how to get these into the actual UI, I'll just ask somebody at Replit to point me in the right direction here. And maybe there's the ability to add it to the custom Replit thing here. Maybe not. I don't think there's any auto-completion in this file, is there? I don't think so. Okay. There might be some additional commands I could pass into the language server when I'm starting it, but it looks like they might be entirely different things. So in the GitHub, there's Svelte language server, but then there's the SvelteKit as well. Are there options here? Lint. Oh, interesting. There's a bunch of options. I'm curious now. This looks really similar to what we were seeing over in this file. So in the language server, give me those examples again. Python. I just need to know how to pass in options. It looks like I can just pass them right underneath the thing. Yeah, so languages, that's bash that's gonna get executed, I think. Not, these are .nix files. No, this is not a .nix file. This is a TOML file that is then getting converted and passed into, but this is on by default. All these things are on by default. Okay. Enable the TypeScript plugin. Okay, I'm not sure that this, well, there's prayer. When using, oh, that's when using the VS Code extension, but we're not using the VS Code section. Svelte language servers under development. right, we are at the end of this Pomodoro and learned a little bit more about language servers and that kind of stuff. Wasn't exactly what I was hoping for, but it got us further along. We at least have ESLint and Prettier now. We at least now have ESLint and Prettier running in the shell. They're not actually emitting those messages into the, I don't know, small victories here, learning how to do this stuff. We'll come back in the next Pomodoro and work on some features related to the multi-timer again and see where we can get with that. But for now, I'm going to take a 5-minute break and I'll be back in 5 for the last Pomodoro of this work session. Thanks for hanging out. Talk to you soon. All right, folks, welcome back to Coding with Jess, where you code along with me while I build a thing. We're about to do Pomodoro 4 of 4 for this work session. So we're about 90 minutes into a 2-hour work block where we've been working on this multi-timer app in Replit. And so far, things have gone pretty well. Gotten a lot done here. And yeah, let's see. Just noticing the volume is like super low on this microphone. Not sure what's up with that. Well, hopefully I'm loud enough that you can hear me, or crank the volume and I'll figure out what's going on with that later. Check, check. Huh. Oh well, volume's still low. Weird. Okay, so welcome back. Let's get started. Jump back into Pomodoro number 4. So I'm gonna switch over my desktop here. We'll start our last 25-minute timer and get going. So this last Pomodoro, I don't know, it was more or less useful. I'd say I'd give it a partial victory. We got Prettier and ESLint up and running in Replit, but they're running in the console. They're running on demand using npm run lint and npm run format. Not my favorite. I want them to run as I'm saving to like reformat the thing. And I also want like the errors to be visible in the as I'm going along. So kind of disappointing there, but that so be it. We'll roll with it here. So, right. Okay. So let's close out the .replit file. That's where we were in the package rc, prettier rc, tsconfig, eslint, and then we're back at our main app here. We did make a fairly big change just now when we went and did the format, but hopefully things will be a little bit easier to read. So as we jump in down here, we can see that we have, let's see, what do we want to work on now? Sorting the timers in ascending order. That's what we were working on. It turned out that that was actually a little bit more challenging than expected. So the timer sort, the problem is when you do a sort here, let's move this over so we can see our app again. When you do a sort here, it reorders the LIs. And so you need to do that only once you've like acknowledged a change that you like want to actually update the field. And the simplistic way that we're doing updates right now is using bind. Bind is right here, bind value. And apparently bind value actually doesn't wait for a defocus or a return or anything like that, but it's actually doing like a dynamic change to that value. Some kind of unbounce or debouncing has happened where it like waits until you stop typing before you before it updates it, but it's a problem nonetheless. So let's see, 45 seconds, put that back on there. So I think I might leave off resorting for now, because otherwise we have to change out the the bind value and only update, like we have to do the update ourselves. We could do it as part of this on blur here that we already have in here, and then redraw. I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing. Let's take a look at our list and see if there's anything that's like more interesting. Let's like write some notes here just so we don't forget. We are using on our bind value to update the timer's time field, but that update happens while editing is happening. If we redraw the list while editing, it swaps out the input field from underneath us. Very disconcerting and very strange to see. So in order to get this working, we will need to move to calling a function to update the timer's time field and execute that function on blur or when or on key press when return is pressed or something like that. There's also some UX concerns here around the way it works on mobile, which I find myself using this on mobile often. So we'll want to think about this sort of resort functionality before we actually do it. Cool, so we've got about 20 minutes left. There were a couple bugs that we looked at. Let's look at those real fast and see if we want to fix those. When changing the time for a timer, when the timer is running, we may need to reset the elapsed status. Okay, so let's see. For an example of that, we would like go ahead and have the timer start. All right, that timer has now elapsed. I say got it. Come in and set this timer to 25 or something near, let's say 15. And then it probably won't get triggered because it's already elapsed. All right, so we'll need to, that's a tricky one because in order to solve this problem, the solution is the same as the sorting problem. So let me go ahead and stop this timer before we start getting clicked at in the background. We will need to call a function when the timer value updates so that we can reset acknowledged. Well, it's elapsed. Elapsed and acknowledged, actually. All right, well, maybe we'll be going to that function faster than I think. And it really won't be that bad. So maybe it's not maybe it's worth doing. Let's look at the other one. Adding a new timer when the largest timer. Oh, this is the string edition one. This one's super annoying. But it should be pretty easy to fix. So let's see, we're looking at plus 10. There it is. So timer push. So on this one, we look at when we're adding a new timer, we sort them by time to get the largest time, or we pull all the times until we get the largest time, and then we add 10 to that largest time and stick it at the end. Oh, actually, we also need to set acknowledged here. Cool, we've set it. I'm gonna go stop this. I think it felt like it might be adding some lag to this experience. Not sure, is that my activity, my CPU heating up, or is that the Replit going slow? Looks like it might be a kernel task thing. I'm not sure. Okay, might be the Replit slowing down here. Let's close all these windows, just make things, and then let's give this a refresh actually. Reload site. Felt like it was getting a little bit laggy, but it's entirely possible that that's actually my computer, which can slow down over time as well. All right, console, shell, docs. I'll close the console for now. All right, well, that's about as lightweight as I can make it, and hopefully it will be, it's definitely not zippy, but we'll do. It'll do. All right, so let's go fix that string addition problem. What I think we want to do is parse num. Is that the function here? Let's ask Ghostwriter. How do I parse a string as a number in JavaScript? The number could have decimals. So it's not parse int. What is it again? Parse float, that's right. Parse float. All right, now let's try it. So now adding a timer. There we go. Sweet. And then I should be able to add one with some arbitrary decimals. Great. Let's also floor that math.floor to drop all those silly decimals. Great. So now we got that. Can add timers, can add silly decimals to the end, and then it'll drop those silly decimals. Great. Okay, cool. So that's fixed. Now we could do some styling, show which timers. Oh yeah, the one thing we should definitely do is let's move from the, let me go ahead and refresh this. Let's move from the multiple elapsed buttons to a single like acknowledge instead of having a whole bunch of them display. So in that case, let's come down here and take this code and move it up to maybe to the right of the button. Go over here and bring up the shell again and npm run format because I'm like super lazy, y'all. There we go. Man, I really want that to run on save. Let's see. So data attribute. Okay. So this is gonna, did that actually break it? Timer's not defined. Oh, because timer's not defined right here, of course. Let's see. So in that case, we'll need like if unacknowledged timer. And come in here, const unacknowledged timer equals that. No, I don't want to mark all of them. I want to return true if there is a timer that is elapsed but not acknowledged. Let's see how Ghostwriter does here. That's not what I wanted. Return unacknowledged timer. So it's going to do a timer.find where the timer is elapsed and it's not leaving a space there. Timer unacknowledged. Okay, cool. So now if I hit 1 and start, oh, stop, okay. So I wonder if this if function won't work. Oh, yeah, this will probably run only once instead of run every time. So what we want to do is oh, we could, yeah, yeah, let's try that for a sec. Do the find. That was weird. Index is not defined. Oh, right. We don't need an index here at all. Why does it even have one? Oh, that's how we know how to remove the timer. Okay, cool. All right, so then refresh this. Set that to 1 second, start. Got it. Cool. Okay, so that's working. The one thing we'll want to do is, oh, right, because that only shows on elapsed. So we'll want a case where timer is elapsed and timer is not acknowledged. All right, so let's set this for 1, hit start, hit got it. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so we've got that done. Let's see what's on our list here. Show which timers have already elapsed. Oh, right. That would be kind of a fun thing. Let's do that as one of our last things here. Let me stop. We could also make turn when, okay, turn stop into pause and change play to, or start to resume and pause to clear. When paused. I would love to ask Ghostwriter to make that change. Actually, I'm curious what it'll do here. In my code, how would you change whenever the timer is the current? Huh. That's not too bad. I was just thinking about what this would actually be required to do, but let's see if Ghostwriter can figure it out. The current code stops the timer. I would like to turn stop into pause, and when the timer is paused, start should change to resume. Show me that change. Let's see. So start time, here's a change. Start time is equal to either the paused time or date.now minus the, I was just thinking that was what you'd have to do. The date now minus the pause time in order to get the new start time. That's great. Okay. And then, ugh. Is there anything else that has changed? This is kind of clunky because I'm having to go through and figure out where exactly the changes are. What? Why are we using Svelte's like dynamic thing, the is thing? Ugh. Well, I'm not sure. Okay, let's see. So we're looking at, going to see what changed here, and it doesn't really tell me. It looks like it ran out of tokens too. But we've got, if there's a timer interval, then onClick pauses. If there's not a timer interval, then it starts. Okay, so there's got to be a pause timer function. Okay, so it changes stop timer to pause timer. Let's go look at that code real quick and see how it's different. Stop timer, stop timer, stop timer. Here's stop timer. All right. If not the timer interval, okay, there's no timer interval, or there's no start time, then return. Because we're pausing, I guess? Why does it reverse that to make it an or? And then we do a clear interval, set the timer interval to undefined, and then set the paused time. Don't love that. And then there's that acknowledge timer function. Zoinks. Well, it was a good attempt, and I think the cool thing that I saw that it caught here, which was the pause that I had right before I asked it, is when you start the start time for the start timer, you have to, right now I'm calculating the start, or I'm assigning the start time to be the date time. But what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to save the paused time, the time at which it was paused. And if there is a pause time and we want to restart the timer, then we need to set it to the date now minus the pause time. So it's interesting, tiny little tweak, but it's interesting that it catches that. Okay, well, we are coming up on 2 hours of working on multi-timer just now, so I think I'm about to call it a day. This has been super fun and actually pretty darn productive. The addition of having Ghostwriter autocomplete in Replit gives me some of that sweet Copilot feel. And the IntelliSense was working okay today. The one thing I noticed I found myself missing today was definitely the ESLint prettier loop of formatting on save. I've gotten really used to that, and having to format manually definitely feels like it's slowing me down. But all in all, we got a lot of stuff done. And thanks for joining for Coding with Jess. Next week, I will be on vacation for the week, so I will not be doing a live stream. But the following week, I'll be back doing more live streams, probably on multi-timer, and may want to try and build that. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for tuning in, and talk more next time.